My lovely, lovely imps, please welcome the one and only Gayfesh, who you can see right down below with this
Hello.
adorable little avatar. Please welcome Gayfesh to the show. We are going to be doing a duo review of the new Martin Scorsese film, Killers of the Flower Moon, which we saw earlier this week together, and I certainly have been thinking about it all week. If you are not subscribed over on Gayfesh's channel, the name is exactly as you would assume, Gayfesh, E instead of I on the fish, but Gayfesh. And you should go subscribe because Gayfesh does an unbelievably awesome amount of reviews on all kinds of media. And if you're into movies, if you're into Star Trek, you're going to find all that kind of stuff over on Gayfesh's channel, and you should go subscribe.
I literally just reviewed the latest episode of Star Trek Lower Decks, as well as Dix the Musical. I was literally just talking about that today. I also cover a lot of strike news and stuff like that. And
Yeah.
I also play Mario Wonder a lot recently. It's a fun game.
All very good stuff. So please make sure you hop on over and subscribe to Gayfesh's channel. Anyway, welcome, and let's talk about this movie. It was a heavy one. Yeah.
It was a long one too. We saw it together, and at one point I check what time it was, and then I lean over to you. I'm like, I know we're 2 hours into this, but we've still got 2 hours to go.
Yeah, I was like, so I kind of lucked out in that I was hoping that I would be able to make it through the whole movie without having to make a run to the bathroom, because there is no intermission, which why not? Just put an intermission in.
So
why don't they do it?
Have you seen the news on that? There was actually some theaters that were throwing in an intermission, and the studios were very upset about that. They're like, you can't edit our stuff unauthorized. So they were going after some theater chains for doing that. And it doesn't look like it was a lot of them, but yeah, the editor was very upset about that. And
yeah, I mean, I understand getting frustrated, but also at the same time, I know that this is going to sound like a little bit of it's a bit of a petty critique. It's not really a true critique of the movie itself, but it is difficult, and you don't want to miss anything, especially in this movie where it is so dense. There is just narratively, it's so important to see everything. Especially if you're unfamiliar, which I assume the vast majority of viewers are going to be unfamiliar with the actual story of what happened. It seems pretty important to catch everything. I feel like I kind of lucked out when we went, but yeah.
It's actually they literally because this is set in the in Oklahoma in the 20s, they actually bring up the Tulsa massacre in the film.
Yes.
And
yeah, multiple points actually.
There's even a point where a house is bombed, and one of the first reactions of other people is, it's Tulsa, it's happening here.
Yep.
And
which was a bone chilling sort of first reaction for people to have. There's a scene in the film where they're watching, they go into a theater and they watch a Fox News presentation on.
It's a different Fox News. The Fox News that we all think of didn't start till the 90s, but yeah.
But yeah, and it's like a Fox News presentation of Tulsa, of the story of Tulsa, and yeah, especially later on, it is definitely a pretty bone chilling moment. But yeah, okay, so real quick, for those who aren't familiar with the sort of story that's going on here, Killers of the Flower Moon is Martin Scorsese's sort of fictionalized but historically based retelling of the sort of story of a string of murders that were committed against the Osage people in Oklahoma, the native population in Oklahoma. And the Osage people were in a sort of unique position in that the land that was given to them by the U.S. government after they were relocated twice, if I remember correctly, maybe possibly 3 times.
It was either 2 or 3 times.
Yeah, they were originally in Missouri, and then were moved down to Arkansas, I think, and then to Oklahoma. And it just so happened that the land that they were moved onto actually contained in it an incredible amount of oil. And when that was discovered, the Osage people basically split it, more or less evenly among the tribe. And what that meant is that there was so much oil that more or less overnight, the Osage people became a serious economic force to be reckoned with. And following this, of course, there was a string of murders, and these murders actually happened. And the movie is a sort of historical fiction based on this event. And it was a very, very heavy film, but also extremely fascinating. And yeah, so I just wanted to make sure that people understood what, the sort of context of the film and what the basic summary of the events are.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so um, yeah, there's so much I want to say about this movie. So if you had to say what your sort of favorite thing about the film was, what would you say?
Favorite thing about the movie. Well, my first thought was actually one of my least favorite things about it, which was the length. Hang on.
Yeah,
I'm trying to put your
was
stream
very
on
long.
screen. There we go. Yeah, I've just got your stream up so that I've got, the audio visuals going to be delayed from my end, but that so that people can see you at least.
Mhm.
Yeah, like I said already, like theaters were putting in intermissions and they were upset about that, but like this I don't see them being upset that like most people are going to end up seeing this at home on streaming. I mean, it was wasn't it made by is this one Apple Films, or was that Napoleon, the Ridley Scott one? Was that
I
Apple
think
Films?
that was the Napoleon one, was Apple Films.
Okay.
I
Um
could be wrong though.
but I'm
I
just
can double
saying,
check real quick.
if you're making a 3.5 hour movie and you don't put an intermission in, you can't really be upset when people want to take a break. People do have bladders, and
Yeah.
theaters sell, popcorn, which makes you thirsty, and then they sell, soda, which makes you pee. So,
Yeah.
like, I understand when you are an artiste and you have a very specific vision that you want people to be in there for, like, okay, but you also have to take into consideration just the realities of people and their biological needs, and just like you could in theory make like a 25-hour movie and demand no intermissions, but nobody's going to watch that. So at some point you
Yeah.
kind of have to stop being so elitist about it and either make this a mini series or put an intermission in,
Yeah.
something to take a break, you know.
And it is one of those movies where I think there is a lot of artistry on display in basically every aspect of the production. Um, so it's one where you don't like. I don't want to leave like in the middle of a movie ever, like usually, but especially in a movie where I feel like I'm really glued to it and really pulled into the story.
Well, and you did
Um,
have to leave once. You had to, like, you
yeah, I
missed a
did. Yeah, I
murder.
did. Yeah, I missed one of the main yeah, exactly. I missed one of the main murders. Now, thankfully, I was sort of able to by context. I think I literally walked out. The moment that I walked out was like the scene right before it where which was a very
Where they're
awkward
plotting
time
the
to walk
murder.
out. Yeah, they're plotting the murder, and then it like there's like a very brief moment where Leonardo DiCaprio's character like crosses the street during a KKK parade, and like
Yeah.
the guy in the KKK parade just like lifts up his mask and is like, "Hey there, Eustace, I think his name is, right? Eustace."
What's he? I don't remember.
Eustace?
Everett or something like.
Uh
I don't remember what it was exactly. Let me. It started with an E. I
I
remember
kept
that.
thinking it was Eustace. Ernest. It's
Ernest.
Ernest,
It's one
not
of those
Eustace. For
old
some reason, I thought it was
timey
Eustace.
names that start with an E that you don't hear much anymore.
Yeah, it's like the guy just like flips up his mask, like, "Hey there, Ernest. I hope you have a good day." And it's like literally like it's crazy. So there's so much that I want to say about this movie. And yeah, it's one of those movies where, like I said, I did not want to get up. I did have to. And it does kind of come to a detriment of at least the presentation of it. But stuff that I really thought was incredible in the movie. First of all, the thing that I wanted to shout out the most was the costume work. Was next level. It was genuinely incredible. Basically, every aspect of the costuming department was just knocking it out of the park. There's a scene in particular. There's a wedding scene. Probably like, I don't know, maybe a fifth of the way into the movie. And
She had epaulets. It's
it's not.
awesome.
Yeah, the like the and so I went and looked into this afterwards, and it turns out that the Osage like tribal center was hugely involved in the creation of this film, and that
Hmm.
all of the native outfits were handmade and coordinated by the Osage tribal center,
Well,
which
that's
is like
awesome.
super amazing. So they're like historically accurate, handmade, and also made by the people who are this story is about. And and that was it was this wedding scene just again it's not like a like you're going the scene is not supposed to be like the world's most fantastic wedding ever, but the work that's on display is so detailed that it's breathtaking even for like the place the town that they're in is like a pretty rural town, all things considered. And so it's like a rustic wedding, but the outfits are just remarkable, and they I just found myself like stunned by that scene. And it's not the only scene either. There was a number of other scenes throughout where I just found myself marveling at how good the costume design really was and how much care went into it. No cut corners on that front. And of course, I think you'd be hard pressed to find a Martin Scorsese film that wasn't cinematic, like as far as like visually very, very well done.
Hmm.
And there's none of those sort of scenes that you run into right now. Even in some very high budget productions, you'll run into scenes where it's just like under lit and you can't see what's happening, and that was not a problem at any point in this film. It was
I
incredibly competently done,
I suspect that's
in my
probably because it
opinion.
was shot on film. Like I assume it
Yeah,
was shot
yeah,
on film. Yeah, a lot of times in cinema when things are oops are underlit, it's they're filming on digital, and
yeah.
I don't know all of the particulars as to why that is. I'm sure you know better than I do. You went to film school. Um,
Yeah, I mean, part of it is just that, like, on digital, there's a fix it and post mentality that has taken over most digital productions, but
yeah.
people don't realize that like lighting is incredibly difficult to fix in post
Well,
because you can't fix what hasn't been captured by the camera.
and
And so
that's
with film, there's this tendency to be very careful about it. And I mean, I think another that just speaks to Martin Scorsese and the people that he works with, just the level of experience that was going into the production of this film, that
yeah.
there's like, oh, okay, we have a team of people who know what they're looking for, who know how to deal with lighting, who know how to deal with shooting at night or shooting in dark situations and not have it look fake or underlit,
Well,
which I
and
think
one
they
of the
did a
big
really good job of that.
problems that we see in cinema, just in general, and like it's particularly a Marvel issue, just in terms of lighting, is how because they've got the fix it and post mentality, where like a lot of times you will just be shooting an actor on a green screen and you don't know what the final product is going to look like, which means everything is just evenly lit because there's no intentionality to the lighting because you don't know what
Yeah,
scene it's going to be. You don't know where that character is going to be. They will sometimes just replace the objects that the character is holding in their hand. And
yeah.
when you've got it like that, when you're like, well, okay, we need to shoot this scene so that it can serve any purpose we need it to in the future. Of course, it's going to look bland and uninteresting because it wasn't shot with intention.
Yeah, and that is there is no such issue in Killers of the Flower Moon. It's every scene was very clearly shot with intention. That this is a masterfully created film, and it shines as a result of that. And it makes it a nice film to watch, even though the like message and the story that's being communicated is painful, beyond painful.
Yes.
I literally like my day was done after watching this movie. I'm not even kidding you. I went home and I felt so bad that like I like laid down and just couldn't stop thinking about the movie. It was just it really upset me. And uh I that was absolutely intentional on Martin Scorsese's part. I don't want to I mean, there's not much to be spoiled because it
It's a
is a
historical
historical
event.
event. You can read about it, but the fact that basically it was just the movie focuses specifically on two characters, which is Ernest Ernest Burkhart and Molly Burkhart, who is his wife, who is a full blood Osage native, and like the focusing on them makes it not just a story about murders, but also a story of perpetual deception and gaslighting. And it is just it is nightmarish to witness to unfold. To the degree that like for the whole movie, there's like a part of you that's hoping that like there's some piece that hasn't been revealed to you yet. But if you're familiar with the historical event, you know that there's not. You know that entire time that even though you're like, oh God, it can't be this fucking cruel, and it is, of
Yeah.
course.
Well, and
Um,
it's also interesting, like uh, the way, because I have seen Scorsese films before, and he has had like death scenes in his films that
mhm.
he's played up with more style than this. Every
Yes,
single murder in this film is not played up with style. It is just shot very matter of factly, very blankly, very like you don't have any like cuts when the
there's no
murder happens.
dignity.
It's just the person slumps over dead and the camera continues rolling. And
especially the killing of Molly's sister in the
yes.
woods is it is so it's like it's sickening because like obviously it's still a studio film, but it has this energy of like a snuff like you're watching a snuff film. It's horrible. And unsettling and sickening. And I think it's good. I think it's a good thing that that every aspect of this movie is not like it's not hyper dramatized like most like you'd think of like a you think of like a gangster movie or whatever and
Well,
that might be based on
you
historical
have
figures.
spooky mood lighting and like eerie music and like a lot of like close up shots of the different characters as the murder scene is coming
Yeah,
up. That's not how Scorsese plays this at all.
not at
Everything
all.
just like murder scenes are shot like every other scene.
Yeah.
And
And
it,
it definitely contributes to a deep unsettling feeling throughout the entire movie.
um
um
one thing that
yeah.
I will say that I was thinking about, and this was something that I was talking to you about, is the movie, especially at the end, really hammers home the the way that society has treated Native American women as disposable, and that's an
Mhm.
ongoing issue that like Native American women are murdered at a substantially higher rate than basically the rest of the population, and
Yeah.
so often just nobody cares about it. And
Yeah, and in fact, to note on that, at the beginning of the movie, one of the things that happens is there is a sort of moment of narration. There's a few moments where the film like enters, it like exits that like raw sort of historical presentation and goes into a more filmic thing, and it's usually to hammer home this type of thing, like that one thing in the beginning where it lists off the names of people, and it's like died like how they die was never looked into by the police, was never looked into by the police, never investigated, never investigated, never
rule the
investigated.
suicide, whatever.
Yeah,
Yeah,
ruled as suicide. And it's just like this just like relentless, like 10 person deep, never investigated, ruled as suicide, never investigated. Horrible, horrible. And but yeah, anyway, that plays into exactly what you're talking about here.
yeah. But one thing that I do also notice is like because I mentioned as we were leaving the theater that I think
Mhm.
this film poses a good opportunity to get this talked about more because
I do. Yep.
well I mean
No, I agree.
what is it the hashtag say her name was like wasn't that originally for like missing native women like
I don't
kidnapped
know
and
if it was the
murdered.
hashtag, but the term,
Yeah,
the catchphrase was, at least very early on, used for missing and murdered Indigenous women. Um, if you look it up online, you can actually, you can find some of the earliest posts using that as a catchphrase are referencing that.
yeah.
And yeah, it very much, the film seems very aware of that and front loads that, um, so that those, these stories stick in your head from the very beginning to the very end.
And even with all of that, and with how in the film, like, it takes literally begging the president to investigate
Yeah.
the murders for them to actually be taken seriously. Um, with all
Actually,
of that,
arguably, it takes more than that because they go and they send somebody to beg the president, and then that guy gets murdered in DC, and then they have to send like half, including a extremely sick Molly Burkhart to then go ask the president again, and even then they're like the president has like 5 seconds to talk to them.
yeah.
It's just it's wild, and like there's
But even with all of
basically yeah.
that, the reason that this story is being told, the reason that we know
Huh?
about it, is because the Osage are wealthy.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
how many stories are never going to be told? How many stories are nobody even, like how many native women have been murdered and disposed of that nobody is ever going to find out about because they weren't wealthy? Um
Yeah.
and not to discount these people's stories are important, and I think that the fact that this story is being told is very important. But there was something that I was thinking about, how with how much it took to even get, like, the Osage, like they said, per capita, the Osage were the wealthiest people in the world at the time.
Mhm, at the time. Yep.
Um, and also it's really interesting to see how that's portrayed, because even though the Osage are the wealthiest, they've been declared incompetent to manage their own
Yeah.
affairs. Anytime they want to withdraw money and spend it, they have to go to a white man and say what they want to spend it on.
Yeah, it's wild how, despite their wealth, their rightfully held wealth, they're controlled in it, and it's interesting that, like, the class angle is probably one of the parts of this movie that I think is underbaked, that could have been analyzed a little further, but also I understand where they were aiming with the film. But yeah, the fact that like it's like the money is the only reason, is partially the only reason they ever even end up getting any attention, but also that money is the way that like they're not even able to have money in the same way as like, as like the white people around them, that there have been ways to that have been designed and built around them to control their ability to use their own money, to have access to their own money, and additionally to like actually like live like like wealthy people of the time would be able to. It's really strange how that is. And then of course there's the other aspect of like how all of the businesses around that they have to interact with are also like just rip them off all the time. Like there's that really horrible scene
Oh,
in
the
the
when they're
funeral
talking to,
home.
yes, where like he's pointing out, he's like, come on, like, I saw the funeral for this guy, it didn't go over $300, and you're charging them like what, over 2,000. And then
Yeah.
after, pressuring him, like, eventually the funeral guy, like, has enough, and then just basically goes on this racist tirade about how the Osage don't work at all, and like, we white people, we're trying to work for a living, so of course we're going to
He
take their
literally
money.
uses Yeah, and he literally uses the term, "Oh, he's like, "You're charging," the phrase, he's like, "You're charging me Osage prices. That's
Yes.
fucking bullshit." And he's
Yes.
like screaming at him about it. And it's like, "Oh my god." Like it's just there's so many layers of heinous behavior on display in this movie. Oh my god, there's so much. And it's like and yet and like you can't even like it's there's no, like I said, there's no fictionalization on the historical facts that like that anybody can like say, oh well, this is a fictionalization. No, this is just it's all of the aspect, all the worst aspects of this film are 100% historical truths,
I
and
mean,
that just makes it hit even harder.
the fact that he like casually walks past a KKK parade
Yes,
where the guy lifts
yeah,
his hood and just says, hey Everett, how you doing? Like they're buddies, they know each other. Like he's friends with the KKK even though he's married to an indigenous woman.
yeah. And there's another scene where the sort of main villain of the film, his nickname is King, and that is a whole other sick level
Oh
of
yeah.
um and this is Robert De Niro's character. His name is Bill King Hart or something along
Hale.
that lines. Hale, Bill King Hale. And
Or was it
he
Hill?
I think it's Hale.
It's Hale or Hill, it's one of
And
those.
yeah, and there's another scene where so first of all, his character, like he's the most evil guy in the entire movie, and also he's like he fetishizes the very people that he's actively plotting the murder of and the exploitation of. It's incredibly weird. Like he speaks their tongue and understands like their religion. He's extremely like he tries to make himself extremely involved, even to the end where he believes that like, oh, they're not going to convict me because they won't believe the lies that are being told about me. They love me
Yeah.
too much. It's so incredibly weird. And then on top of that, there's like another scene where like at the whole time he's always two-faced through the whole film, like to an
Yes.
incredible degree. He's like literally will gaslight people straight to their face. Like he'll tell them, they will have the truth in front of them, and he will just be like, that's not true. But there's another part in the film that ties to what you were saying about the KKK, where he's like, um, he's basically using the KKK's presence to like, he's like, well, I don't like the KKK either, and we would hate to have them come into power. So you got to stick with me, and you
Yeah.
gotta like make your workers take out, make you got to agree with me and agree. I think they're talking about like his workers taking out life insurance policies where he is named as the recipient,
Oh,
which is a
that
thing
was
that
something he
happens.
keeps doing in the
Yeah,
movie.
he does multiple times throughout the film, is make his workers take out a life insurance policy where he's the recipient of the money. And yeah, he's like, oh, well, it'd be a shame if the KKK came into power because I don't like them. I think they're like ugly, brutish racists, unlike the ugly, brutish racist who's right in front of
Yeah.
you. Like monstrous, just monstrous. And again, all of those aspects are true historical recorded events that you can go read about this on Wikipedia right now, and you will find the real world version of it. On that front, it deviates very little from the actual events and the actions that were taken. And of course, a lot of these were recorded partially because of the way that they were done, like that, like this guy taking out insurance policies on his own workers who are natives, and then he just finds a way for them to accidentally die or just die from a murder. Like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Of course he kills them,
Well,
but like
there's even a point where he's
he
like,
never takes.
there's even a point where he's like, I know you want to get rid of this guy sooner, but we have to wait at least a year, otherwise I'm not going to get the insurance
Yes.
money for it.
He's like, this guy owes me $25,000, I know it would be convenient for us to kill him to get his inheritance, or first, so the inheritance goes to your side of the family, but we have to wait because otherwise the insurance company will start asking. It's fucking disgusting, so fucking sickening.
Now, I
God,
also
it's so
have
fucking
to
sickening.
like point out this is a Scorsese film, and Scorsese loves telling movies about organized crime, and that's certainly what this
Yes,
film is about. Um, but like
he cannot help himself.
when he was writing the film originally, he
uh-huh.
had to actually stop and like start over from page one because he realized he was just telling a story about the white men and
Yeah,
he wasn't centering the Osage enough in it. And even in the finished product, as we were watching this, it's still a story about the white men, and the Osage are kind of secondary to it. Now, they're certainly portrayed very sympathetically, and a
yeah,
lot of care is given to make sure they have voice in the film, but they are not the main characters of the film. The criminal, the organized crime, the plots to murder them all. Those guys are the main characters.
Yeah, and I do think that that's a completely a very very worthy criticism of the film is that like when the film goes into like behind the scenes things, the behind the scenes are always the plotting of the murders. They are always the main characters, Leonardo DiCaprio and Robert De Niro, conflicting for whatever reason, so that it does suffer from that perspective issue. And it's unfortunate too because some of the most interesting parts of the movie, in my opinion, are when we do get to see the perspective of the Osage people, which is it's like those, by the nature of the way that the narrative progresses, like we don't get to see them anymore because of the way that film is framed. So like an example is like when the Osage people call like all of the family heads together to have that discussion about like how they're going to take action, like what are we going to do about this. And there's that meeting where they're talking about where they're raising money and they're deciding whether they're going to send somebody to
That's one of the
DC.
best scenes in
Like
the movie.
one of the best scenes in the film is this incredibly intense scene where um there's like people like openly weeping because somebody just got brutally murdered, and like literally earlier that day before the meeting happened, there was like a these psychopath doctors who are on the payroll of Robert De Niro's character decided, they're like, oh, we can't move the body, we have to do like an open air autopsy on site. And so there's just a bunch of people who have to watch their family member get cut up in like the woods by a bunch of
Because they were trying to like
fucking
find the bullet so that they could hide the
find
evidence
the
of the
bullet.
murder.
Yeah, and literally, they use the autopsy as a way to hide evidence. It's and so there's like this scene after that where you have like a bunch, like all of these family heads having to come together to make a decision. It's an incredibly intense emotional scene. And unfortunately, like I said, and there's another one later in the movie that we do get, which is when the FBI inspector or the FBI
Yes.
investigator characters come back in. There's that scene where the Osage people meet with the FBI, another really great scene, unfortunately very short. And so those two scenes like are some of the most interesting and like tense in the film. We don't get to see as many because again it's so fixated on telling the stories, while not like favorably telling the stories, but still telling the stories of Ernest Burkhart and Bill Hale.
Yeah. Um
Yeah.
and
So
there was there was like a specific line. I don't remember verbatim what it was, but like one of the
one
elders.
moment. Sorry, not to interrupt you. I
Sure.
just got a big raid. I'm just gonna welcome them in real quick.
Oh,
Sorry to interrupt you.
Vosh raid.
Welcome. Welcome to all of the Voshites. Please come in and get comfortable. I am currently speaking with wonderful friend of the stream, Gayfesh. We are
Hello.
talking about Martin Scorsese's new film, Killers of the Flower Moon, which I think we both would recommend strongly. I don't want to speak for you, but I certainly recommend it strongly. I welcome you to all come in and get comfy. Thank you, Vosh, for the raid. We've been talking about it for a little bit, but please get comfortable. We're going to be doing a whole bunch of other stuff afterwards, even if you're not super interested in this film. So please stick around and welcome. Um, Sorry for that interruption.
Yeah, okay. So
Go ahead and continue.
when the Osage elders are talking to the FBI agent, and they're like, you white people, you come onto our land and you say this is the way that we are doing things now, and we have to follow your rules, otherwise we will be in trouble. But like 20 years ago, if there was somebody out there who was just going and killing us, we would just find out who it is and we'd go and kill them. But we
Yes,
can't do
and
it that way now.
it's wild too, and I do think this is to Martin Scorsese's credit, the amount of attention through the film that is brought to that like um basically the Osage people are repeatedly bound by because they are basically threatened by a law that will take action against them that won't take action against the people perpetrating it. So there's not just, is it like they're not allowed to practice their own way of life as they would have, but also there's a slanted law that they're being subjected to, that like yeah, and that scene really brings that, like that's like the scene where it kind of comes forward as like as like a direct commentary, but you see it them come up against this multiple times throughout the film, where it's like even in the first council scene where it's like, okay, well, we've been asking the Oklahoma state government for help over and over again, and they will not help us. We can't take action. We don't have access to any form of justice. So our only option is to go to Washington, which of course then that doesn't even work in the first case. It's yeah, it's a really wild yeah, it's a really, I think the movie does a good job of showing that, of sort of highlighting how first of all unevenly the law is done in the first place, but how the like the Osage people had a way that was working for them that kept their people safe, and that's been stripped away and replaced with a law that they have no say in, that also is slanted against them.
Well, and that's how the film opens, is they are doing a ceremonial burial for a peace pipe.
Yes.
And it's all the elders talking about is like the children who are listening outside are this building, they will grow up with not speaking our language and not knowing our ways. They will be they will be following a new way with white people, and our way will just our way is just going.
Yeah, and it's just it's this, it's a heart-wrenching opening to the film, and also really sets the tone for the rest of this just continual erosion of a people's way of life, of a people's culture, on multiple fronts. There's not just one single front on which this is happening to them. It's every aspect of their life is being attacked, every aspect of their ability to live full and healthy lives. Also, there's another part that I just remembered, that kind of plugs into this. There's this part in the beginning of the movie where Robert De Niro is talking to Ernest, Leonardo DiCaprio's character, and he's just like sort of giving him the rundown of like the Osage people, and he like brings up just sort of casually, oh yeah, like Osage women don't live very long. And it's like,
Yeah,
and then you proceed to see that like the reason they don't live very long is because
they're murdering them all.
they're actively murdered, poisoned, mistreated. They're not given access to any sort of medicine. The medicine that are is like given to them by their own like tribal healers is like downgraded and blocked or outright outlawed. So it's like they have no path. It's like, oh yeah, no wonder they die young.
Well, and
Like,
and then
you
the
make it that
medication that
way.
they do get, like you know, God, the just Molly's whole story, because she has diabetes, and
Mhm.
they use the very fact that she is on insulin against her in a very heartbreaking way. I don't want to get too much more into it, but
Yeah.
like I'm watching this and I'm like, yeah, I can understand why, marginalized people might have an inherent distrust of Western medicine for after something like this, you know?
Yeah, it's wild, and that was another part of the film that was, like, the gaslighting that, like, is so sickening because, like, it's so wild. Okay, so in that scene, in the first scene where, like, the conflict over the insulin first happens, like, the movie almost like at that point in the film, if you're like the film hasn't quite revealed to you the full extent of Ernest's actions. You're only just starting to figure out how involved he is in everything, which is very involved. Um, and Molly is like, I don't want, like, why do I have to take this like white people medicine? It's poison. Like, it's not good for me. It's not helping. And he's just sitting there like, no, you're fucking crazy. And he literally has like a racist tirade, like he goes like extremely hard on like the medicine that she had been getting previously from like the native healers, all the while that it is actually fucking poison,
Yeah.
and it is actually being poisoned. And it's like, yeah, like again, it's like even the medicine that does work, that is truthfully like is like maybe scientifically proven, can't be like, that science can't be trusted to actually be able to filter through down through the fucking layers of racism to actually be able to reach people. So like it's completely rational that people would not want to engage with that type of structure whatsoever. And it's like the film does such a good job of portraying that without like which I think is something that like in broad political conversations, I think that a lot of people miss the mark with like being able to actually discuss this topic of why like certain peoples around the world don't trust, Western medicine or whatever. And they frame it as like, oh, it's like anti-intellectualism. It's like anti being an anti-vaxxer, but it actually isn't. It comes from
Legitimate
no,
fears.
actually yeah, the last time that we accepted medicine from these people, it was literally tainted. It had been actively poisoned because people wanted our land.
Yeah.
Like you're gonna have a very rational reason for distrusting the science, but that is saying like even if the science is true, you're gonna distrust the suppliers or the people who are giving it to you. And when you're engaging, like when an entire people group is subjected to that level of systemic gaslighting, it's just the damages it echoes for generations. And I'm happy that the film actually tackles that issue so head on, like that it's a core part of the film. There's so much in this movie, and we mentioned at the beginning that it is really long, and I feel like the length is it's rough in the theater, but it is actually really good that it's as long as it is in a lot of ways, because I do feel like there's so much that needed to be talked about, and I'm glad that they gave time for all of those things to be talked about.
Well, and Scorsese was talking to about how he had actually been influenced by Ari Aster,
Yes.
who directed Hereditary and Midsommar and Beau is Afraid, and how he was influenced by the slower pace of those films that lets things slowly build and gives things time to breathe, and that like Ari Aster, I think right now, like him and Jordan Peele are like the best horror directors out there, and
Mhm.
to see for a long time horror has been treated as like it's been treated like sci-fi and fantasy where it's not really taken seriously, but I think some of the best filmmaking out there right now is coming out of horror. And so to see
Yeah.
Scorsese, a veteran legendary director, give praise to one of the newer horror auteurs, and take direct inspiration from some of my favorite films of the last decade to influence the way that he's making this film. Um, I can appreciate that. I think there's probably still a way to make this a 2-hour film. I think it would be harmed for it. Um, but I also think like something like this could have been a mini series and would have worked just as well, in my opinion.
Yeah, I do think that that there could have been, yeah, I do think this series, I mean, I don't know if Martin Scorsese has ever done like a serialized
Hmm.
uh thing like that, but I do think that that could have worked as well. And perhaps that would have even allowed it more room to dwell on certain issues that didn't get as much um as much attention. But yeah, even in its current form, I do think like I don't think that don't be daunted by the length. Those of you who are listening,
Oh, and I
it
looked.
is.
This is an Apple film, so
Oh, it is okay.
it should be on Apple TV Plus fairly soon if it's not already. I don't know how they're planning that whole release thing, but
Okay, so then it'll probably be
movies these days are going on streaming sooner and sooner. Like a lot of the horror movies that I've been reviewing this month, they're already available to stream. Like even though they came out a couple weeks ago because they wanted them all out so that people can stream them on Halloween.
I'm trying to see if there's a date. Oh, it looks like okay. Well, Apple TV, if you search it, it does look like you can watch it on Apple TV right now.
Oh, okay.
So it looks like it's already released. So you don't have to go see it at the theater if you'd prefer to watch it in
If you
your
want to
own
pause and
home.
take and go to the bathroom and not miss a murder scene like Demon Mama had to, you
Yeah,
can
like
do
I did. I
that.
missed one of them. Um, yeah, and so I was trying to think of if there were other things that I wanted to say about the film. Of course it's a period piece. Um and so like I already mentioned that the costuming is really good, but I also think that the set work is phenomenal. Um Down even to the way that they like handle lighting, and the fact that like um all of the like all of the night shots have like this greasy like oil, oil light energy to them all. Oh yeah, the general just griminess of the film. Especially there's the one scene, there's a scene where Leonardo DiCaprio's character is like questioned for a really long period of time,
Hmm.
and I really loved that scene because it's like, first of all, there's like they keep paying attention to the like flies that are like trapped
He
in the
keeps
room.
getting flies landing on him, and he has to bat them away. And
Yeah, and it's like and like he's getting all sweaty and greasy and disheveled over the course of the hours like that is being depicted there. And like also his character, like I really do think oh yeah, we should talk about the performances. Maybe that's what we can like sort of end on
yeah,
is talking about the performances. But um I really love just how much attention to detail there is in like presenting just a grimy world of of really seedy people who put themselves in horrible situations, and especially Leonardo DiCaprio's character. So
there was
the performances.
one of the
Go ahead.
guys, the the guy's name was Blackie. He was one of the hitmen that they had
Uh-huh.
hired. I was actually just doing a little bit of research on the movie, and like I found that guy actually has his own Wikipedia page, and they've
Oh
got his
wow.
photo, and the actor they got from is a dead ringer. They got somebody who looks just like him. I looked at him like, wait, I saw that guy in the movie. That's his face. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, no, Leo does great. I was expecting Leo to do great, and also it's very interesting to point out that when Scorsese was first planning this movie with DiCaprio, he wanted DiCaprio to play the FBI agent who was investigating the
Yeah.
murders, but DiCaprio said no. I want to play the husband who's doing them,
Yeah,
and
and I think that was such a good choice. Oh
it
my
would have
god,
been a
what a
completely
better
different
choice.
movie. Like from having the focus be on the plot so that we see everything going on from the inside rather like that kind of lets it play out a little bit more chronologically. Like I think if DiCaprio was playing the investigator, well then he would show up after most of the murders had already happened,
Yeah,
and he'd be piecing
and
things together that way. I think it's a yeah, it would have been a very different film, and I think there probably wouldn't have been as much opportunity for the Osage story itself to be told, like
yeah,
for their story.
I agree with that. I think it would have been like obviously, both of us mentioned that we think it would have been better if there was more room for the Osage perspective, but but yeah, it would have been way worse if it had been Leonardo DiCaprio in the FBI agent's role. In the current iteration of the film, the final version of the film, Jesse Plemons, right? That's his name.
Yeah.
Plays the FBI agent, which I thought he did a great job.
Well, I really like
I thought
Jesse
he did.
Plemons. If you don't
Yeah,
know the
he's
name,
good.
he was Todd in Breaking Bad, or
Yes.
as the fans liked to call him back in the day, Meth Damon, because he looks like Matt Damon, but he was cooking meth. So
Yeah. And
I
he's
like him in
great, of
everything
course,
I've
in
seen.
Breaking Bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's good. He's really good. Uh, I really can't like praise the performances in this enough. Lily Gladstone, playing Molly Burkhart, um, amazing, agonizing performance. I do wish that we got to see more scenes of like the early and late parts of the film where like because she's really sick for most of the movie.
Yeah.
And while she portrays that incredibly well, there's just also a lot where she's just like
Lying
not
around.
very conscious.
Yeah,
Yeah, and that's
it's a very
unfortunate
passive
because
role for a lot of it. And I think I mentioned to you in the theater that she's going to get the Oscar for this film, but I don't think she was given the material to merit it. Um,
I mean, I think she knocked it out of the park at the beginning and end, and I wish there had been more, but and I'm not gonna be mad if she gets the Oscar for it because I do think that the parts where she was given a more active role were fantastic. Especially, there's a sort of scene that sort of caps off her character story towards the end of the film, and it
oh,
echoes
that
right
was
back.
good. I know
Yeah,
the
it
one
was
you're talking
amazing.
about.
It's basically where she sort of has her moment of closure on recognizing, yes, I have been completely and utterly betrayed by every person, every white person that I've trusted in this entire film, including my fucking husband. And so that's like her moment of like closure. And it is uh this incredibly powerful, understated performance of that just it's burns into your memory. And part of it too, it echoes back to the beginning where there's ironically, it's a line by Robert De Niro's character, where he says, "Oh, don't." don't start doing, don't just chat to fill up space. You might think that the Osage people are quiet, but they're always listening, they're always watching, and they know everything. And that moment really, like, it's like the prophecy comes back around, like this, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
where it's like, yeah, she had almost nothing to work with, no assistance, and had to figure this out for herself from her own, like just going through the agony. Like, the only information she really gets to be able to piece any of what happens together is from her own observations while she's deliriously ill. And she only comes to, like, even to that moment that I'm talking about, of like confronting the gaslighting that she experienced, confronting this deception. She only even gets that because she has a such a severe medical episode, that while she's like out of the town, that she has to go to like a recovery center that's distanced from her like home context, and they have no motivation to like mistreat her. So she finally receives like
proper
medical
care.
traumatic yeah, but it's traumatic, and so she's able to observe through her own feelings, like, I was being poisoned.
Yeah.
And like, oh my god, it is so good. And in the beginning, of course, when they're sort of like, when they're having their, when Leo is like trying to win her, over her heart, her, like, the way that she presents this character with such insight and dignity, and she's so like almost cold in some ways, because she's
Yes.
just like not having his shit,
Mhm.
and yet she's not cold. He is able to warm up with her, and she has so much feeling, but she has like a strong defensiveness that it's incredible. I think her performance is really good, and I do think that it's a little bit regrettable that so much of the movie is her like sick and in agony and in like literally delirious or unconscious or passed out. um and maybe a part of that just enhances the parts where she is, I mean, there is that, it does certainly enhance the tragic aspect of like this beautiful person, um who has so much life and so much to say, and it's just like debilitated because some fucking scumbag wants her money, you know
There was
yeah.
there was one scene in the film that I noticed was not physically possible.
Uh-huh.
That it was very striking to me because for a lot of the film, Scorsese has been very deliberate to show things, just presenting them very matter of factly. But
Uh-huh.
after William Hale has like set his farm on fire for the insurance money,
Oh yeah.
there we
With the
go
FBI watching.
with the FBI watching because one of them is undercover as his insurance salesman. And but
Yeah.
anyway, it goes to Everett and Molly's place, and you can see the fire outside the window. Except they aren't living near his farm. William
Oh.
Hale's farm is out out in the sticks, whereas Everett and Molly, they're living in a community with a bunch of other houses, like where all of her siblings were living. So like there wouldn't have been the fire right outside the window because there would have been another house outside the window. But
Yeah,
we
that
can
did
see the
confuse me. See,
fire there.
I thought they were supposed to be staying over at his place when
Oh,
it
was it
happened.
that? It could have been that, but the way I read it
I,
was more
I
just
don't know.
like the just the presence of William Hale there was just like, as he is destroying the world around them, even though they're not physically right next to his thing, but even then they can still see it outside the window. I thought that was
Yeah.
kind of the implication of that scene. But I could
Okay,
I could have
you might
my
be right, because it is, now that I'm thinking of it, it is her bedroom from
yeah.
their house. And like there is another part right near there, because she's like, at that point she's like in the worst health that she's been so far in the movie, and she keeps having visions of various types, including one um Bill Hale, like he like comes into the room and talks to her,
Mhm.
and then she's like, "Are you real?" or whatever, and he's like, "I might be." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so you might be right. You might be that like that scene is actually supposed to be sort of from her perspective, and or even just like that the room is burning because like she's literally in the throes of like a deadly fever, and in Ernest's mind, like he knows all of it. He knows that they're burning down the house right then. So maybe
Yeah.
the fires aren't actually supposed to exist at all. It's only supposed to be a sort of visual aspect for us to see, but that's communicating what's inside. I don't know. I for some reason when I saw that scene, I assumed they were over there and that they were leaving because there were so many people that like, oh, they're not actually like setting the house on fire. They're like burning the land right now. Now we're gonna go leave like it's like we're escaping or whatever.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I think you might be right.
It would definitely need a second watch and further analysis. This was just something that, a note that I had jotted down in the theater.
Yeah, I will be watching this again. I will be watching this one again with Doe and my other partners because yeah, I want to see it again.
Well,
Even though it's rough.
when the Oscars start up, like as part of my channel, I plan to watch every single film that is nominated. And
Wow.
so and that will probably also just involve rewatching some of the other stuff, because depending on like what something gets nominated for, it might be in a category that I hadn't particularly paid attention to in the film. So
Mhm.
that should be that should be an interesting project. So I will definitely be giving this film a rewatch at some point. Um
Yeah.
yeah.
I guess if there's nothing else right immediately on my mind, I would say I strongly to all of my viewers, I strongly recommend going to see Killers of the Flower Moon for so many reasons, but also if you can think of no other reason to go see this movie, you need to see the incredible costume work. I mean, I have not seen a film in recent memory that has put so much love and care into the costume work all the way throughout. I'm talking from beginning to end. And of course, the Osage historical clothing that is on display is in and of itself, you know, fantastic. But the overall film as well just has really great costume work. So I recommend it strongly. And then if you want to say anything, final thoughts on the film, then we can sort of wrap it off here.
Yeah, I would say uh just to again reiterate, um I think it's an important story, and I just am trying to be cognizant of the factors that go into deciding whose part of the story gets told and why. And I don't think it's a perfect film, but I think it's very important, and
Yeah.
I think it's going to spark a lot of conversation, and I think that probably might be its hopefully its most lasting impact. But we'll
Yeah.
see.
Yeah, I hope so too. I really hope it gets people. I mean, it's a very visceral confrontation with a real piece of history that most people don't know, like at all. So I do think that it succeeds in that front, and I hope that it has great success in uh, you know obviously raising awareness is always a limited political victory, but I think it's an important one nonetheless, and I think this film does a very good job of it. Yeah, so that was our review of Killers of the Flower Moon by Martin Scorsese. And Gayfesh, thank you so much for coming on. Do you want to just do a quick shout out for your channel, get all these wonderful viewers over there, and then we'll call it good?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm Gayfish. You can find me at youtube.com/gayfish. You can also find all of my links at gayfish.com. I don't have a White Forest site yet. That just goes to an all my links page. But you can find me there. You can find me on Twitter. I'm at gayestfesh. You can find me on Blue Sky. I'm at gayfish.com there. And if you liked what you heard, I do movie reviews every Thursday evening. I watch 2 or 3 movies a week that are currently in theaters, and I give my thoughts on those. I also cover a lot of um, Hollywood news in general. I do a lot of strike coverage, and I also play video games. I've been Super Mario Wonder just came out, so I've been playing a lot of that. But I also I just beat Celeste last week, and I'm still
Ace.
cis. So
What?
I know, right?
Absurd.
Somebody told me that it doesn't count because I haven't beat the B and C sides yet, so I guess maybe I have to do that
You gotta check and make sure.
To be sure. But yeah, come on over, give me a subscribe. I just broke 900 subscribers, so I only need 100 more to get 1,000, which is one of the 3 criteria I need to get channel monetization. The other 2, one of which is easy to do, it's just have 3 uploads in the last 90 days. And I'm doing daily uploads on my channel, so if you want to see new reviews, they're posted every day, or new, strike news, Hollywood news, all of that. And also watch time. I need like 1,500 more watch hours. So if you want to watch my stuff, so close to get that channel monetization and make that, underpaid Google AdSense money.
Yeah, I would. All right, everybody. I think we can get Gayfesh a bunch of new subscribers, and then you can all have a bunch of awesome stuff to watch that will get those watch time numbers up. Gayfesh, thank you so much for coming on. This was a wonderful, wonderful conversation, and I look forward to hopefully doing another movie review sometime in the future.
That would be
love
fun.
To do this. This has been great.
Yep. Have a good night.
All right. Bye. Have a good day.
Bye. Hey, thanks for watching. I'm trying to get my channel monetized, so your view means a lot. Don't forget to toss me a like and subscribe and ring the bell. I stream every Monday and Thursday at 5 p.m. Pacific, so catch me live and join in on the convo. You can find all my socials in the description below, and thank you to all my patrons, with a very special shout out to my Whale Shark tier patron Ryan D and my Anemone Friend tier patron Piftle Cakes. Your support means the world. Catch you next time.